Ever notice how the people who walked away end up shaping you the most? Not the ones who stayed, not the ones who clapped the loudest, the ones who left. And here's the twist nobody tells you. Rejection isn't random. It isn't a mistake or a failure. It's a signal. A push you didn't ask for, but desperately needed. You've replayed those goodbyes in your head, right? Wondering what you could have done differently, what you said wrong, how it could have turned out better. But what if I told you that what feels like a door closing is actually a reroute, one that points you exactly where you need to go? By the end of this video, you're going to see rejection in a completely new way. Not as a loss, not as punishment, but as an unfiltered message about what your life really needs to make space for, and why those who left were actually giving you the greatest gift you didn't know you were ready to accept. First, let's talk about the rejection myth and why it feels personal. When someone walks away, your mind instantly jumps to, what did I do wrong? Maybe it's a friend who stops inviting you to weekend plans. You scroll through old messages, asking yourself if you said something awkward or if you weren't interesting enough. Maybe it's a colleague who no longer checks in with you for ideas. You replay presentations, wondering if your points were weak, or if you didn't assert yourself enough. Or maybe it's a partner who suddenly becomes distant. You go over every conversation, thinking you missed a signal or said the wrong thing. Here's the myth. Rejection feels personal because we automatically assume it reflects our value, that every goodbye is a judgment, a verdict, a permanent mark against us. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." That's why the shift. Rejection isn't a verdict on your worth. It's a signal that something in your life isn't aligned. Let's break that down. That friend who drifted. Maybe they were showing you what kind of connection isn't sustainable for your growth right now. That coworker passing over your ideas. Maybe it's highlighting where your effort isn't being recognized and nudging you to invest energy elsewhere. That partner stepping away. Maybe it's exposing patterns in your own behavior you hadn't noticed, things you were tolerating that kept you from being fully seen. Think about it. Every ending carries information. The problem is, most of us ignore it because it hurts. We replay the loss, not the lesson. Here's another way to see it. Imagine a door closing quietly in a hallway you didn't even know existed. It feels like rejection, like loss. But really, it's clearing space for a path you weren't aware was there. So next time someone leaves, pause before blaming yourself. Ask instead, what is this goodbye teaching me? What pattern does it reveal? Because when you start asking those questions, rejection stops being a punishment and starts being a guidepost. Messy, uncomfortable, and challenging, but ultimately necessary for growth. And that's the subtle power people miss. The exit isn't the end of the story. It's the first page of the chapter you didn't know you needed. So what is the hidden signal inside every goodbye? Every goodbye carries a signal, but most people are too busy feeling hurt, frustrated, or confused to notice it. Think about it. A friend slowly stops texting. First it's a missed message, then a canceled lunch, then silence. At first you shrug it off. Then you start replaying past conversations, wondering what you did wrong. But what if the fading wasn't about you? What if it was showing you which friendships thus actually feed your growth and which ones quietly drain your energy? A coworker avoids collaborating with you, or your ideas get passed over in meetings. At first, you feel slighted. Later, you notice a pattern. Maybe you've been overextending to fit into a culture or dynamic that doesn't value your strengths. The goodbye, or in this case, the distancing, is a nudge toward clarity. A partner pulls away after months of compromises. You dissect every word, every gesture, every disagreement. But the exit isn't just loss. It's a spotlight on habits or compromises that were holding you back from being fully yourself. Even in more subtle ways, someone you've counted on for advice or support disappears when you need them most. That absence feels unfair, but it's also revealing. Maybe your reliance on others was masking areas where you needed to step up and take responsibility for yourself. Carl Jung put it plainly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Goodbyes aren't random acts of rejection. They reveal patterns you may have been ignoring, patterns in how you give or expect energy in relationships, patterns in which environments or people support your growth, and which ones hold you back. Patterns in the compromises you tolerate, the boundaries you ignore, and the parts of yourself you hide just to maintain connection. And here's the thing, if you ignore the signal, life doesn't cancel the lesson. It repeats it. Different faces, different situations, same lesson waiting for your attention. Think of every goodbye as a natural filter. Not everything that leaves is a loss. Sometimes it's removing noise, distractions, or friction you didn't even realize was holding you back. So instead of asking, why me? Ask, what is this goodbye trying to reveal about my life? What patterns am I blind to? What energy am I wasting that I could reclaim? Once you start asking those questions, a painful ending transforms. The goodbye stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like guidance. And that's the secret most people miss. It's never about who left. It's about what they're leaving is teaching you about yourself, your choices, and the life you're meant to focus on next. So let's move next into this part. Why staying would have cost you more. Here's the part nobody likes to hear. Staying would have cost you far more than being left. Not in one dramatic moment, not as an obvious loss, but slowly, quietly, in ways you wouldn't notice until months, or even years later. Think about it. Maybe it's a friend who constantly cancels plans, but you keep making excuses for them. Staying in that pattern would have meant always lowering your expectations, silently sacrificing your weekends and your energy to keep a connection alive that wasn't mutual. Maybe it's a coworker or boss who takes credit for your ideas. You stay to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, but every project slowly chips away at your confidence and your voice. The cost? Your momentum and the chance to find a space where your work actually matters. Maybe it's a partner who wants to compromise on everything, asking you to shrink your ambitions, hide your needs, or constantly tiptoe around their feelings. Staying might have meant losing touch with yourself one decision at a time, pretending that silence or small concessions weren't wearing you down. Carl Jung explained this tension perfectly. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents. Here's the transition. Translate that forward. Staying in the wrong situation doesn't just cost you in the moment. It costs you your growth, your clarity, your chance to fully step into yourself. Every day you stay where you don't belong, you pay in energy, focus, and emotional bandwidth. You're constantly editing your thoughts, controlling your reactions, and negotiating your instincts just to keep the situation stable. And over time, that slow drain becomes almost invisible. But it's there. The real cost isn't external, it's internal. Your ideas get quieter, your boundaries weaken, your decisions become smaller, safer, and less authentic. Your confidence starts to erode, not with a bang, but with tiny, almost imperceptible concessions. So when someone leaves, it doesn't just feel like rejection. It feels like a hole. But that hole, it's not loss. It's space. Space that suddenly exists for you to breathe. Space that allows your energy to go where it actually matters. Space that protects the version of yourself that would have slowly shriveled if you'd stayed. And here's the paradox. The pain of the ending is temporary. The relief it creates lasts for years. When you finally look back, you realize staying would have been like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. Every effort, every ounce of energy, every compromise would have just leaked away. And this is the moment that changes everything. You start to see endings not as punishment, not as loss, but as shields. Not as doors closing, but as doors removing distractions. Not as a blank space, but as a stage cleared for the life you're actually meant to live. That's why the people who leave often end up shaping your life more than the ones who stay. Because staying in the wrong place doesn't just stall you, it slowly diminishes who you could become. Here's the truth most people don't see. Rejection isn't punishment, it's redirection. It doesn't arrive gently. It doesn't come with a label or an explanation. It comes as a door closing, a message you didn't ask for, or a sudden space where something used to be. And because it feels painful, your first instinct is usually to resist it, to chase what's gone, to fill the gap. But what if that exit wasn't a loss at all? Think about it. Maybe a friend stops inviting you to events. At first it feels like abandonment, but over time you realize it's freeing you from relationships that required too much effort and gave too little. You now have the mental energy to invest in connections that actually feel alive. Maybe a colleague passes over you for a promotion. At first, it stings, but months later, you notice that it pushed you to focus on projects that better matched your skills, or even to pursue opportunities outside that environment entirely. The rejection wasn't random. It redirected your path towards something better. Maybe a romantic partner ends things after months of compromise. That initial heartbreak feels crushing. But when you step back, you notice that your priorities, your ambitions, and even your happiness are suddenly yours again. You're free to pursue a version of life that wouldn't have been possible if you'd stayed. Carl Jung captured this perfectly. There's no coming to consciousness without pain. Here's the transition. The pain isn't punishment, it's pressure, and pressure clarifies. Rejection compresses your world. Fewer paths, fewer distractions, less noise. And in that compression, your focus sharpens. Suddenly you see clearly where your energy actually matters, where your decisions have the most impact, and where your life can grow without being weighed down by misaligned relationships or situations. And here's the subtle power people miss. Redirection doesn't just guide you toward something new. It removes friction you didn't even realize was slowing you down. That friend who left, you now have space to explore hobbies, ideas, or new relationships you ignored before. That job you didn't get. You're free to pursue work that aligns with your strengths and ambitions. That relationship that ended. You can finally show up fully as yourself, without compromise or hidden resentment. Rejection isn't random. It's intentional in the sense that it forces clarity. It narrows your options. It removes what no longer fits, so you can focus on what does. And this is the kicker. Months or years later, you look back and realize the exit that hurt so much was actually the catalyst that pushed you toward a life that works for you, not a life that merely felt convenient or comfortable. That's why the people who leave often end up shaping your path more than the ones who stay, because their leaving forces alignment. It forces growth. It forces you to become someone you wouldn't have had the chance to be if you'd stayed stuck where it was safe or familiar. 6. The thank you. You can't say yet. Fully extended. There's a reason you can't feel grateful right after someone leaves. Gratitude needs distance. It needs perspective, something you don't have in the middle of the pain. Right now, all you feel is the gap, the silence, the sudden space where certainty used to be. And your mind screams, "This isn't fair. I didn't want this." But here's what's actually happening in that silence. You're recalibrating. Your life is shifting in ways you can't fully see yet. Think about it. Maybe a friend stopped talking to you. At first, it felt like betrayal. But over time, you realized that their absence gave you space to invest in relationships that actually support and energize you. You didn't have time before. Now you do. Maybe a colleague who overshadowed you at work stepped back or left. It hurt. But suddenly, you have room to step into projects you never dared touch, to take initiative without fear of being dismissed. Their exit cleared the stage for your growth. Maybe a romantic partner ended things after months of compromise. It felt devastating at the time. But months later, you notice something subtle. You no longer have to suppress your ambitions, your voice, or your needs. You're free to create a life that actually matches who you are, not who someone else wanted you to be. Carl Jung captured this delayed understanding perfectly. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. The order doesn't arrive when the goodbye happens. It arrives after you've lived beyond it, after the raw emotions have faded and you can finally see the patterns. That thank you doesn't happen in words. You don't send it to them. You don't even consciously say it to yourself at first. It happens in how you live next, the energy you reclaim, the decisions you make without hesitation, the confidence you rediscover, the boundaries you finally enforce. One day you'll notice that your life has shifted in ways that would have been impossible if that person had stayed. That's when the thank you finally arrives. And here's the key. That thank you isn't for them. It's for you. It's a recognition that their leaving wasn't just an ending. It was a clearing, a push, a signal. So when you feel the sting of someone exiting your life, remember, the absence is temporary, but the space it creates, that can last a lifetime. Here's the part most people skip. The moment you stop just surviving the goodbye and start using it to fuel yourself. Rejection doesn't just clear space, it creates momentum. But momentum doesn't happen automatically. You have to take the energy from the ending and redirect it toward action. Think about it. That friend who drifted away slowly. You might spend the first week resenting it, but over time, you realize that without their constant energy-draining presence, you finally have room to reconnect with people who lift you up, or even explore hobbies or passions you'd ignored. That absence becomes a launch pad for growth. That job you didn't get, or promotion you were passed over for. At first, it stings. You feel overlooked, maybe even frustrated. But the frustration is a signal. Your skills aren't being fully utilized here. That energy, anger, disappointment, restlessness, can be redirected into creating projects, seeking new roles, or learning something that actually accelerates your career. The rejection becomes momentum, that romantic relationship that ended. Heartbreak is brutal at first. But months later, you notice something subtle. You're no longer bending to fit someone else's life plan. You have mental space to pursue your goals, personal growth, or even new connections that match the real version of you. That ending, painful as it was, gave you the freedom to move faster toward the life you were meant to lead. Carl Jung captured this perfectly. Where your fear is, there your task is. Your fear of being alone, of failing, of not being enough. That fear isn't a stop sign. It's pointing directly at the work you're meant to do. The goodbye highlights it. The pain draws your attention. And if you follow it, it becomes the push that finally propels you forward. The key is simple. Don't just feel the absence. Notice it. Study it. Ask, where can I channel this energy? What choice can I make now that I couldn't make before? Momentum shows up in small ways. Making that call you've been postponing. Starting that side project you've been dreaming about. Setting a boundary you've been avoiding. Speaking your truth even when it feels uncomfortable. Each small step compounds. Each choice becomes evidence that you're moving forward. The ending that once felt like a trap slowly transforms into the engine, driving you toward clarity, freedom, and growth. And here's the secret people don't often see. The momentum isn't about replacing what you lost. It's about building something better. It's about stepping fully into yourself in ways that weren't possible when the people or situations that left were still taking up space in your life. So the next time someone leaves or something in your life ends, don't just mourn the absence. Ask yourself, how can this push me forward? How can I turn this loss into action? Because when you do, the goodbye stops being a setback. It becomes a springboard, and once you start using it that way, nothing, even heartbreak, rejection, or loss, can slow you down for long. So how do endings shape your path? Here's something most people miss. Every goodbye isn't just about the moment it happens. It's about the trajectory it sets for the future. Think about it. That friend who faded away. You might feel lost at first, but years later, you realize their leaving gave you the freedom to meet the people who actually match your energy, values, and goals. That absence wasn't random. It cleared the path for better connections. That job you didn't get. At first, it feels like a dead end. But eventually you notice that it pushed you to explore a career path you'd never have considered otherwise. Without that rejection, you might have stayed stuck, comfortable, but stagnant. So next time someone leaves, or something ends unexpectedly, pause and ask, how is this shaping my path? What's it pointing me toward that I couldn't see before? Because once you start seeing endings this way, every goodbye, no matter how painful, starts feeling like part of a larger plan, one that's quietly nudging you toward clarity, growth, and the life you're meant to build. So here's the takeaway. The people who leave, the doors that close, the opportunities that slip away, they're not punishments. They're signposts. They're momentum. They're guides nudging you toward the version of life you're actually meant to live. Think about the goodbyes that hurt the most in your life. Ask yourself, what did they actually give me? What space did they create for growth? And here's the real challenge. Don't just reflect, act. Use the energy from endings to step into the choices you've been postponing. Start small. Take one action today that moves you closer to who you want to become. If this hit you, take a moment to notice one ending in your life differently this week. And remember, one day you'll look back and silently thank those who left, not for what they took, but for the space they created for you to finally move forward. If this video made you think, share it with someone who might need to hear this. And hit subscribe if you want more videos that turn life's setbacks into your secret advantage.